Welcome to NOS Pro Performance Tips. Have you ever gone to a late game PvP and had no idea what you're supposed to be doing? I'm Axslav, and today we're going to learn from the best, taking a look at how Sake and Stork handle this matchup. Before we get into handling the mid game, let's cover one quick tip about the opening. If you're not going for a rush, try to play greedy but informed. This will ensure you won't fall behind against a fast expand and protect you from potential rushes. Here Stork makes a great decision by expanding, but unfortunately his observer isn't quite far enough out and fails to see Sake's incoming attack. Ideally he should have gotten all his units up the ramp before Sake's push. Losing an early nexus is not that big of a deal in PvP, as long as your opponent is on one base as well. Once the game stabilizes, Colossus Production is the name of the game. Sake opts for quantity in both the second robotics facility. Stork opts for quality and goes for upgrades. Make sure you're doing at least one of these things. If the opening gave you map control, then use it. Stork plays aggressively with his stalkers, which gives him a sense of safety. This forces Sake to be ready to respond to harassment at a moment's notice. If you have an advantage in the mid game, go for an attack, but be sure to have a warping option as close as possible to the battle. Also, never forget the most important rule of engagement in PvP. If your Colossi are alone facing a superior force, be sure to retreat. One of the biggest decisions in mid to late game PvP is how many probes to make. While some protoss like to go up to 70 and even more probes, many like to stay in the 50 to 60 probe range in order to create a stronger tuner food army. Low probe counts are especially common in games such as this one. If the thirds are taken later on, it's likely that the main is running low on resources and has probes available for transfer. Once it becomes certain that both players will max out, the goal is to create an ideal tuner food army. This army consists of Colossi, Archons, Immortals, and just a few Zealots. It's also important to have the option to reinforce with more Zealots during the battle. This Zealot-like composition means players will have extra minerals to play with. Minerals are important for reinforcing during battles and remaxing afterwards. At this point, players are using Zealots to harass, but it's important to only harass if you think this attack will cost your opponent more than the value of your Zealots. Beyond these exchanges, positioning is key to late game PvP. Battling for map vision is important as it will allow you extra time to set up your army. At some point, adding in a mothership is a good idea. The point at which players build this depends on their economy in the mid game. Sake starts his at a 29-minute mark in this game. However, Stork goes for a later mothership, only starting his Stargate at 30 minutes. At the very least, the mothership forces your opponent to add in extra observers. If you're put into this position, make sure to keep at least one observer alive at all times. Because the defender generally gets a superior position and has a closer reinforcing point, there are only a couple of factors that'll make it in your interest to attack in late game. Strike first if you have fallen behind economically because of harass, if you're ahead in upgrades over your opponent, or if you have a mothership advantage. Here Sake wants to attack because he has a mothership with 100 energy and his opponent doesn't. Stork is unable to gain a superior concave because of the threat of a vortex. Because his Templar was sniped before feedbacking, setting up a wide concave would leave half of his army vulnerable to a vortex that could zone them out. In the meantime, Sake could just engage the other half. Stork's warping from the side looks to play a critical role, as Sake's counter warping is further off. However, the vortex forces Stork to back up and sacrifice his Zealots. At this point in the battle, the Colossi are very vulnerable because most of the supporting units are dead. It's very important to avoid fighting with just your Colossi against a combined army. Sake just avoided this using the vortex. When the vortex expires, Sake is left with 3 Immortals and 3 Archons to support his Colossi, while Stork only has 1 of each. Here Stork needs to retreat to save his Colossi, but misreads the situation and loses them. Sake also stumbles when he fails to retreat from the Zealot Warpin and the Dark Templar, but when his reinforcements finally join the battle, he has too much remaining, and Stork is forced to sacrifice his 4th, and shortly afterwards, his 5th as well. If you're ever very far behind in PvP, your best shot is to try and kill all your opponent's observers, and then use Dark Templar. Stork goes for this move, first killing the robotics facilities with warpins, then attempting to equalize the economy by striking at Sake's top left base. When Sake defends this move, his next goal is to ensure he won't run out of detection, and then finish Stork off before he has a chance to remax and even the playing field. This has been Axslav with your NOS Pro Performance Tip. For more tips, go to www.majorleaguegaming.com/nos.